I don't understand the mind of these people. It reminds me of the mafia. One thing and another thing. As we know, the mafia are very nice to their mothers and to their children, not so much to the wives, but very nice. And then they go out and they go to church every Sunday, and then they go out and it's business. Then they go kill a few people, and that doesn't bother them, and they come home and they're nice again. Reminds me of the Nazis. They go out and they kill children, they murder people, but at Christmas time you saw these gorgeous pictures, with the family and the Christmas tree and the wife and the children, everything. What does a mind do? Why can that do that and separate it?
You're asking me to answer that, huh?
Yes.
Because you think I know. I might know something.
Uh-huh.
I might know something.
Okay.
But certainly not a complete answer. I do believe that people can essentially repress or suppress certain parts of their personality to the extent that they can lead double or triple lives. And because that's true, it's made me a very good living. But the...
And let me add something too.
Sure.
When your entire life you have been told that a certain group of people were inferior, were subhuman, were not really people.
No.
They were roaches and rats and lice and vermin, then you're not killing a human being with a child, or you are killing a cockroach, as happened in Rwanda.
That's true.
You are not killing a living being like in your family.
You're right.
You are killing an insect.
And this is what's happening here, and this is what's happening, what happened in Germany and Rwanda and such. And then the first thing you do is demonize the other. And after a while, it becomes just a given that you have to rid yourself of these, just the same way you might hire an exterminator who probably feels like they're doing a good job for people and for the society.
And that's why it's so important to have people like Bebe,
Yes.
survivors, tell their stories, because you see, these are fabulous human beings with great personalities who had full lives and had, families and went to school and didn't go to school and didn't like exams and, had cousins that they played with and didn't play with. They were full human beings, because the fear is that there'll be people who will believe that Jews or survivors or are not full human beings, or any group is not a full human being. So when you get to know a person like Bebe and you fall in love with her, it changes your life.
Go ahead. I want to tell them that story about the two Nazis in the dark.
Please do.
That's a story that is unbelievable, but it happened. I had a friend at the time. She was my age and my best friend, and that family lived in a castle a little bit outside of Antwerp. And Mrs. Four, that's the mother, said to Margaret, my friend, I know that they're hidden. I don't know where, but I know somebody who does. Wouldn't it be lovely if you could get Marcella for a weekend so she never sees children, she never plays, or she is hidden and worried. And to make a long story short, I got there. I had to go by bus, and they picked me up. And for a good reason, I have to tell you, on the estate was a little house that a spinster daughter lived. We don't have spinsters anymore. They're just loose women. But anyhow, so I spent a wonderful weekend, and then we had to get dressed for dinner. And to my biggest fear that I had all these years, I look in the dining room and I see two guys with big swastikas. They were officers. I don't remember now whether they were Nazis or they were army, but all I could see is the swastika. And I thought, what is Mrs. Ford doing? That's a long way to get me killed. I had to come and play with her daughter, and she's just as nasty as Nazis. And we ate. I ate very little, and everybody spoke German. And I thought that was strange. And after dinner, I've never been so frightened. And after dinner, one of these officers came to me and said at my level, which at the time I didn't know what that meant, and he held my hand and he said, "Don't be afraid, little girl. I only have one Führer, and that is Jesus Christ."
Oh, my.
And I went, oh. But that evening I said to Mrs. Ford, I would like to go back to the alley. I wanted my family. I was scared to death.
Of course.
But that is a good story.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
Only one Führer.
I only have one Führer,
Jesus.
and that is Jesus Christ. You know, they were atheists, a bunch of them, so ha ha ha. And on their belts, the Nazis, the army, they all had a belt that said, God with us. Okay.
Want to thank some folks who've been calling, and if you're waiting online, just remember Christopher will get to you. We have a matching donor this evening, and anyone that donates to the station at 404-523-8989. If it's $50 or more, it'll be matched. So this is a time for you to be generous to WRFG, and if you give a call and make a pledge with your credit card, then we will be that much further along here at the station, because we are always in need of funds to keep us going, because we don't have commercials. Only commercial is ourselves and what we do. So I want to thank Eva Beldick, who donated $50. Thank you so much, Eva. And Calvin Ivy also donated $50. So we're getting some pledges to the station, some donations, and if you want to be one of those people because you like what we do here, you like the fact that we can do a program on the Holocaust for 2 hours and have people who are who've experienced it and are experts in their knowledge and history, then this is a chance for you to help us keep on doing this type of programming. 404-523-8989 is the number. Now, we could take a brief break and play a song and cool the place off a little bit. Should I explain to people? Maybe it's too much information, but if we put on the air conditioner, it's hard to hear us talk, so we have to turn off the air conditioner. And so every once in a while, we're going to take a break, play some music for you. You quite graphically, Bebe, gave a knock on the table and told me that was the big fear when you were when the Holocaust started, that someone was going to knock on the door and take you away, to kill you, probably. So anyway, I'm doing that in a way to introduce the next piece of music.
Time in many a land, with many a gun in many a hand. They came by the night, they came by the day, came with their guns to take us away. With a knock on the door, knock on the door, here they come to take one more, one more. Back in the days of the Roman Empire, they died by the cross and they died by the fire. In the stone Colosseum, the crowd gave a roar, and it all began with that knock on the door. Just a knock on the door, knock on the door, here they come to take one more, one more. The years have all passed, we've reached modern times, The Nazis have come with their Nazi war crimes. Yes, the power was there, the power was found. 6 million people have heard that same sound, that old knock on the door, knock on the door. Here they come to take one more, one more. Now there's many new words and many new names. The banners have changed, but the knock is the same. On the Soviet shores with right on their side, I wonder who knows how many have died with their knock on the door, knock on the door. Here they come to take one more, one more. Look over the oceans, look over the lands, look over the leaders with the blood on their hands, and open your eyes and see what they do. When they knock over their friend, they're knocking for you with their knock on the door, knock on the door. Here they come to take one more with their knock on the door, knock on the door. Here they come to take one more, one more.
Phil Oakes, Knock on the Door. Song written in the 60s, actually, but pretty relevant. Yeah. And, we best learn from history. Isn't that the old sage saying? If you don't learn from it, you're going to repeat it. Lily Baxter, you said that you have a story about
I have a story.
The knock on the door, so please.
Another story about knock on the door, and, I've also been thinking about what can humanize people, what can and so this story is about my mother and brother living by then in the Krakow ghetto. And so my family's from Krakow, and they'd had an apartment, and my parents were also members of the underground, and they hid publications, printed materials that came from other ghettos that would say what was going on and get people ready to maybe blow up a transport. And my father built a false drawer in a cabinet, and that's where these contraband papers were hidden. And someone must have told the Nazis, the Gestapo in Krakow, that my parents had this contraband. Because one day, this is now 1942, my mother gets a knock on the door. The knock on the door. And in barge, a group of Nazi soldiers, and they ransack the apartment. And they find the cabinet with the false drawer and find the contraband. The next thing that always happened with that is that they would take the person to the courtyard. You know how in Europe the buildings are around courtyards, and the person would be shot and killed. My brother Danush was then 2.5 years old. And the soldiers, in order to be able to show their good work, they brought in what was like the captain of their division, who wore a long black coat with what looked like gold buttons. And he is looking around at this totally destroyed apartment. And Danush walks over to the captain and starts playing with the gold buttons. He's 2.5. And this captain, who maybe earlier in the day had taken children by their ankles and bashed their heads against the wall, which happened on a regular basis, unfortunately. That very same captain looked down at my brother, who had blonde curly hair and was very cute at 2.5, patted him on the head and said to my mother, "I have a son back in Germany. Your son reminds me of my son. I cannot kill you. Your son has just saved your life." And with that, he walked out. And so there's something there. There's something about when a person becomes a human being, when a child, who in one moment was seen as an insect, in another moment is seen as a son. We need to be able to teach each other that we are all family. That's what we might be one of the things.
But there's this defense, this wall, when people feel like they're doing something righteous, that kind of shields them from the values and compassion that it takes to respond to a situation like that. And there was, just from what you're saying, just a